Everyone knows and loves Rocco Becht, myself included, which is why when the thought that he could be the problem on this Iowa State offense, I did not feel very good, but it could just be the case.
You are Locked On Cyclones, your daily podcast on the Iowa State Cyclones, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Cyclones, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Nick Marovitz. Thank you so much for making this your first watch or listen of the day. I appreciate it more than you know. Be sure to hit subscribe down below so we can prove once and for all that it is, in fact, a Cyclone state. Today, we are talking about Rocco Becht. Could he be the problem on this Iowa State offense, on this Iowa State team? Rocktober has not gone to plan. I think we can all agree on that, but we're going to have to dive into the actual analytics and the vibes on what's going on in this Iowa State team to find out more. Then in the second segment, we're going to break down my current rankings of the Big 12. Things have changed since last time I ranked teams. Iowa State hasn't done so hot. A few other teams have done very well. There's going to be movement. You're going to want to stick around for that. But finally, in today's show, our third segment, this one will be a doozy. What does Iowa State need to do to turn the season around? I don't think the season is over. I do not. I think that there is still hope yet for Iowa State. But what do they need to do to turn it around? I've got the answers, and that's coming at the end of today's show. Before we get that far, though, today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Diving into whether or not Rocco Becht is the problem for Iowa State football is a very interesting rabbit hole to go down. And I'll just sum it up for you right here, right now. Rocco Becht is not the problem, but there are certain things we simply can't ignore, okay? And we'll obviously talk about the things that I think are the actual problems, but let's look at the numbers that I think are worth mentioning, okay? Because there's one that's really glaring, and I've got it right here. Rocco Becht, through the first 5 games of the season, was averaging a QBR of 78.36. Pretty good. Not bad. Obviously, not going to win a Super Bowl MVP with that kind of well, I guess you could. Technically, it's really not that dependent on one singular stat like that, but probably not going to win a Super Bowl MVP with a 78.36 QBR in college ball, at least. Then in the last 2 games, we see a significant decline. Okay, so very good, not perfect, but very good through the first 5 games of the season. Through the last 2, though, Rocco Becht has an average QBR of 42.2. Now, like I said, actually in that Super Bowl analogy, which was quite ridiculous, I will admit, QBR is not everything. It just simply isn't. But I don't think you can completely just disregard the fact that his QBR drops almost directly in half. And look, I'm gonna clarify this right now. I am not taking a direct shot at Rocco because, like I said, I don't think he's the problem. And I would never honestly pin this all on one particular guy playing on the field. This is a team sport. There are 11 guys on the field, hopefully, at any one given time. It's never truly, really on one person. Now, coaching is a little bit different, but as far as players go, it's never really on one guy. However, that being said, the QBR was, I thought, pretty much, it was pretty glaring. Let's put it that way. So I looked at some other stats here, and I was pretty interested by these. So if you guys want more statistical breakdowns, be sure to hit subscribe so that I can have more time to be able to work on these because they take forever. I looked at the average percentage of yards that were coming from rushes versus passes over the last, 7 games, I guess, really. And I didn't actually see anything too statistical here. I'm not going to lie to you. There was a very odd trend through the first 4 games of the season. I think we'll get more into this in the third segment today. But in the first 4 games, the percentage of yards that came from the rush as opposed to the total offense were between 41.74 and 45.88. So roughly 42 and 46%. That's pretty even, honestly. That's pretty much that's actually kind of astounding how similar those are through those first 4 games. But I can't really draw a conclusion here. And that's why I'm saying that these numbers don't really matter for Rocco, because in the win over Arizona, Iowa State had a 27% production from the run game, essentially. And then in the Cincinnati game, it was a 35%. But then against Colorado, we saw Iowa State rush for more yards than they threw for the first time all season, which is, you would think, maybe a problem. But I just, based on that data, I don't think it is. I don't think it is, because they lose that game, but they also lost to Cincy. So the way that Iowa State's numbers there lay out, I didn't think that it was a major, I wasn't able to draw any major conclusions from that. So I'm looking at the QBR. I'm wondering what's going on there. I tried diving into some of these other stats, what percentage of the offense is coming from where, third downs, whatever, this whole thing. I looked at the defense. I looked at everything. And what they basically got to at the end of the day was, I don't think this is on Rocco. Are some of his passes inaccurate? And maybe too many? The too many thing is debatable, but I think we can all agree a few of Rocco's passes have been inaccurate. Over the last 2 weeks, yes, but also over the course of the season, Rocco has had a few throws that I thought could have been placed better, right? Now, they were okay because we won those games, because we scored on those drives, whatever it is. That's fine. It's easy to forget about that stuff when you're winning. It just is. Now, NFL draft prospects will look more into that film, but from a fan perspective of this team, it's easy to look past that stuff. Now that we're losing, it's like, well, we got to be hitting those throws if we want to keep winning. And I think that there is some truth to that, but I'm not too shocked by the throws that Rocco. I thought, honestly, against Colorado, against Cincinnati, for the most part, it wasn't a super jarring difference. I'm going to be honest. You might not agree. That's totally fine. I didn't think it was so ridiculous that it was like, oh, Rocco is like, something's going on here. No, I didn't. And yeah, there's throws that he was going to want back, and there's throws that he thought were perfect, I'm sure. But I think that's just college football quarterback play for you, to be completely honest. I honestly think that Rocco is still a very solid piece to this organization. I do. When you look at what we thought of Rocco coming into the season, what he's doing now, where he's at, one of the biggest pieces to the puzzle was, the quarterback play on the field was great, but the leadership from Rocco is really something else. And I think we saw that post game against Colorado with how emotional he was, all the things he had to say. We can't ignore that. So the question then I think we should answer is, where is the problem on offense? Where is the problem on this team? I don't think you can really nail any one thing down, but I would guess, personally, my opinion, it's coming down to offensive play calling and offensive identity. I think this team is losing their identity. We'll cover that in the third segment. Spoiler alert. I also don't think that good play calls are being made, and I don't think good decisions are being made by the coaches. Now, how much of that's going on at the line and how much of that's Rocco? I'm not going to lie to you. I'm sure it's more than zero. I'm sure it is. But I don't know what that number is. And so it's impossible for me to actually quantify it. And therefore, I'm basically just going to completely write it off. Sorry. That's just how I'm going to go about that. I am going to go off the fact that he's probably given two plays and can pick between them. And he might just be given two duds. Like, we have no idea of actually knowing what's happening in those situations. So I'm going to put it on the coaches because that's their job. So is it Rocco? No. The QBR does not look great. And he's missed throws this season, and he's thrown picks and whatever. I don't think it comes down to Rocco. I think he's still the greatest leader on this team, maybe one of the best leaders Iowa State has had, if not ever, at least in a long time. And it really comes down to, for me, play calling is not there, decision-making is not there from coaches. And I think that I'm okay with standing on that fact, at least for now. Just based on the statistics that I've got here, I just don't see – I think that's the right answer. I do. So I'm curious to see what you guys think down below in the comments or on my Twitter at Nick_Marv. I see all your guys' stuff. And also, I would like to know if you guys are interested in more stats. If you are, hit subscribe, because that's what would allow me to be able to do those kinds of in-depth analysis. Is it the plural of analysis? Nonetheless, we are going to get super analytical here as we break down my top, I guess it's 16, my Big 12 rankings coming up right here after this. The holidays are going to be here before you know it, which is exciting, but getting your home ready for guests and celebrations can feel like a lot. Maybe your serveware needs a refresh or the guest room could use new bedding. Wayfair has everything you need to get your home holiday ready, from Christmas trees and wreaths to bedding, cookware, outdoor inflatables. It's your one-stop shop for every room in the house. Wayfair makes it easy to personalize your home for the holidays with a huge selection for every style and budget, with the free and easy delivery, even on the big stuff. You can get everything you need without the hassle of huge delivery fees. The delivery, like I said, is fast and free, which is a total lifesaver during this busy time of the year, the holidays. I know everyone gets super caught up in what's going on, can totally forget about that stuff. The delivery is super, super clutch in that regard. Get organized, refreshed, and ready for the holidays for way less. Head to wayfair.com right now to shop all things home. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair. Every style, every home. Today's episode is also brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I personally love FanDuel. As I've said, I've built parlays on there. I've tried player props, and the biggest thing is that I followed the live lines during games. I am terrible about getting my bets in on kickoff or before kickoff, and so the live lines are super clutch. Whether you're a casual fan or love diving into the stats like I do, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. So rankings are crazy, okay? And we're going to rank the top. Well, we're going to rank all the Big 12 teams, but we're not going to talk about every single one of them because that would take forever. I did this before, and there was certainly some contention, totally valid. And I've seen a few of you guys in my comments talking about you're a Utah fan, this, that, you're whatever, coming to, let me hear it. That's fine. I'm totally cool with wearing it. I put out these rankings, fully aware of basically the consequences. I cannot wait to see the public outcry essentially from this one, because I think that this is how I feel, but I don't think that this is popular. And so if you've got a problem with it, comment sections down below. It's open. You can type in there. Also at Nick_Marv on Twitter. Also there. Instagram, TikTok. You can find me wherever you want. Let's start at the bottom, and we're going to rapid fire through these. I've got Oklahoma State, West Virginia, UCF, bottom three. Don't think they really matter. I'm not going to break into them too much. I've got Colorado at 13, though, and we will talk about this for a second, because obviously Colorado just beat Iowa State, and that's maybe just too hot of a take immediately right off the bat, and you're gone. That's fine. If that's not, I just personally don't think Colorado's a very good team. They got one against Iowa State. I think Iowa State's really banged up. We're going to talk about that in the third segment, and we'll probably honestly elaborate on it more here at this end of this segment too. But I think Iowa State's really banged up, and they played a terrible game. I don't think that they played even close to their potential. There's that one graph that goes out on Twitter. I want to say it's, let me look it up, but there's that graph that shows how badly you were beat every week, and Iowa State played better throughout the course of the game, but still couldn't win. It's not a good look for Colorado. That's just my opinion. Yeah, it was by Parker Fleming. That's what I thought. Stats war on Twitter. Iowa State had a higher net success rate than Colorado. Look, I'm still putting Colorado at 13. You got a problem with it? Rank them higher in your rankings. I've got TCU at 12. Not a whole lot of they haven't lived up to the hype for me. Obviously, the loss to Kansas State, loss to Arizona State. We're seeing what Arizona State will be brought up later. But they did beat Colorado, so they're right around that general area for me. This is a murky. Honestly, this whole conference is just chaotic. So, I could see someone putting TCU at 5. I wouldn't even be that upset about it. At 11, I have Kansas. I think Kansas showed a lot of promise early on in the season, but since has looked a little rough. Honestly, when they were playing Fresno State and Missouri, I thought they were going to be really good. Since they've just beat UCF and West Virginia, honestly, they could probably move down below TCU. They probably should. Let's move on. I've got Kansas State at 10. Obviously, rough start to the season, right? what are they, 1-3 after beating North Dakota and then losing to Army and Arizona. I don't think anyone had faith in them. But I did see Christian Rao say, are they back? Are they going to the Big 12 championship after they beat UCF and TCU just this last week? I don't think sleeping on Kansas State's a good idea. I think that maybe they have figured it out a little bit, beat the Dublin Curse to an extent. I'm not going to say that they're going to the Big 12 championship game. I'm not saying that, but I think they're okay. I don't think they're terrible, cracking the top 10 there. I've got Baylor at 9. Look, I think Baylor, I think they're good. I do think that they're good. I don't think they're great. I don't think that they beat Kansas State, and so they are one rank higher than Kansas State. Like I said, the middle of this graph or of this ranking gets dicey. Arizona State, I have at 8. Very interesting situation for Arizona State. I wasn't very high on Arizona State, and I tried not to factor injuries into this ranking too much. But with the Sam Leavitt situation going on, they basically took out like 50% of what I felt like this team had. So I don't love that where they're at. The win over TCU was when I started to give Arizona State some faith or I started to believe in them a little bit. I don't think that was the right call. I don't think TCU is as good as I thought they were. Obviously, the loss to Utah, I'm completely writing that off without Sam Leavitt. If you're going to play like the injury thing, I'm just moving on from that. I want to see them with Sam Leavitt on the field. The Utah thing, I am putting zero faith in that. I'm going to move on. But I wasn't super high on Arizona State, honestly, to start the season. So I'm going to kind of stick with where my gut was on that one. This is the one that I don't think people are going to like. I have Utah at 7. And I just preface this. I don't think Arizona State is very good, especially without a Sam Leavitt. Like, I'm sorry. I just don't see it. Utah, I have seen you play UCLA, who has figured it out since firing their coach. Cal Poly, Wyoming didn't look good there. Texas Tech, what are we doing? You beat West Virginia and a beat-up Arizona State team. This BYU game, I don't even know if is a super big test. I've seen Utah fans in my comments that are like, oh, back to see Nick eat his words against Utah. I will eat my words, but I just don't feel like I'm there yet. I think, honestly, the Cincinnati game is their biggest game the rest of this season, which is kind of makes me a little sick because they're probably going to make it because they don't play anybody. Ridiculous. Anyway, moving on. Like I said, Utah at 7. I have Iowa State at 6. Utah fans are going to hate that. I still think Iowa State's a good team. We'll dive into that a little bit more in coming days. But I think for right now, basically what I want to say is that Iowa State has the potential to be better. And this is probably just the fact that I'm an Iowa State fan. You could definitely argue that they are closer to like 10 right now, and I would not be upset with you. But I'm just banking on the fact that I still think the potential is there. You just got to respect that, I think, at this point. They are a good team. They have a lot of talent. Something is messed up. Something is wrong. If that cog gets put back into place, I think this is a top, almost a top 5 team in the Big 12, probably even up higher than that. But I'm not mad if someone puts Iowa State at like 10 or 11, even that far off of my pick. I've got Houston at 5. Look, I think Houston actually might be okay. I mean, if any Utah fan says a word about that, they were closer than you were to beating Texas Tech by a point. So that's all I'm going to say on that. Arizona, I have at 4. I know that this it's just kind of chaotic. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. The BYU situation was really interesting. I do think Arizona is good. I don't think that they're great. I think Iowa State obviously made them look silly, but I think that can happen from time to time. Don't sleep on Arizona. Is 4 too high? Probably. Let's slide everyone up and put them in at 8, whatever. That one I actually am reading, and I'm a little shocked that I even put them there. I've probably got some reason somewhere hidden. BYU, I have at 3. I think they're very good. I need to see more from them, though. They just haven't beat really anybody yet to move past 3, but they're 6-0. Got to give them that. Cincinnati, I have at 2. And the only reason I don't have them at 1 is because I have Texas Tech at 1. Look, I actually feel really good about this list. Honestly, other than Arizona, what was I doing with Arizona? Texas Tech, by far and away the best team in the Big 12. Cincinnati, in my opinion, the next best team in the Big 12. And I don't think it's like super close. Like, I kind of think it's like 1, 2, everyone else is kind of like down here. That's how I view it. Look, I get it. You're not going to agree with me. I don't even agree with the Arizona situation. I'm sorry. I don't know what that was. Move Arizona down to 8, right below Utah. I don't know. Arizona's a very odd team. That being said, I still like the rest of that list. I still don't think Utah needs to be in the top 5. I think Iowa State's right around that. Honestly, I think Arizona State, I was low on them before the season. Now with some injury question marks, all of that to say, this is the best conference in the Big 12. What? This is the best conference in college football. By far, the Big 12 is the best conference. And I'm thankful Iowa State's in it. And I still think there is a chance that they're able to get to the Big 12 championship game, but they need a lot to go their way. They need to turn it around and fast. How do they do it? Stick around here to find out. College football is back, and I couldn't be more excited. The tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands, there's just nothing like it. But let's be real. Actually getting tickets can feel like more of a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping at checkout. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. I pulled up Game Time, and in just a couple taps, I saw some amazing deals, and the app made it super simple. I could even see the exact view from my seat before buying. You guys know how important that is to me. I need to know exactly the view that I'm going to be getting. The map just doesn't make sense. It's faster, it's cheaper, it's less stressful than any other way that I've bought tickets. So take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. Iowa State needs to turn it around if they want to move up from my ranking of 6 in the Big 12 power rankings, let alone across the country. But it can be done. It can be done. And I've got 3 to 4 items on this list. Probably I'll go with, it could get up to 5 items on this list. And I want to know what you guys think, because I think that I think we can all agree on this to an extent. So let's break it down. Let's talk about it. The first thing I have on here is aggressive offense, and that's tied directly to the kicker, right? So if Kyle Conradi comes back, which I assume he will, but I don't know what's going to happen with Matt Campbell, right? Like what is actually happening with any one of the players on the team, I think is a very good question. But assuming he comes back, this more aggressive on offense only really applies until he's back. And even then, I do think that there is a nugget of truth to this. But I just, like I said, honestly, I think I said this ahead of the Cincinnati game, maybe. And I definitely said this ahead of the Colorado game. I think this team needs to adapt an identity that they are more willing to go for broke in these games and kind of gamble and be willing to score a lot of points. I think that this team would benefit from that. But in doing that research for the Rocco Becht, is it Rocco Becht or whatever? I came across the Iowa State Arizona game, and I realized that Iowa State scored 39 points in that game. Iowa State did score against Cincinnati. They did not look very good against Colorado, right? Only put up 17 points against Colorado, and that's what's like in my brain. They still put up 30 against Cincinnati, but they put up 39 points against Arizona. No kicker, hardly. Right? They went for 2 right away. There was a late field goal. And look, I understand. The argument for this, stick with me. I understand the concept that Iowa State has left points on the board in these last few games. I completely get that. I understand that 1000%. But this becomes something where we've got to look beyond just that singular play where they're not getting points and look at the offense as a whole. Iowa State was able to score 36 points. So what, 5 touchdowns? 5 touchdowns plus a 2-point conversion against Arizona. They are capable of putting together competent offensive drives and getting in the end zone, as opposed to sputtering out and forcing themselves into kicking field goals. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm not saying that Iowa State, hasn't left any points on the board, and the kicking situation is like not a big deal. I think it's a big deal. I think it needs to be a bigger deal when you get like some weird situation going on and you're pushed back slightly out of like the 30 and you're kicking it from like the 35, 40, right? Because that'd be like a 57-yarder. That's like Kyle Conradi, where he's like on the edge of his range, and you're still able to squeak points out of that drive, even though there was a weird holding call and it threw the whole offense out of loop. That's where I think Iowa State is hurting the most, because I think that they're capable of scoring more than we seem to like remember. You know, when I think we're looking back at this team, we're all assuming like, well, without Kyle Conradi, this team just unable to score points. I think they kicked 15 field goals a game based on what I'm seeing on Twitter. Like, yes, Kyle Conradi being out has hurt this team, and we can't wait for him to come back. And someone clip this and send it to him. My card is in the mail. All right. It's got a lot of confetti. Don't open it over taco salad. My point is, I think that this offense is more capable. So I think they might just need to be a little bit more aggressive. I do have some other things from the offense, though, that I think we need to talk about. I think this team needs to get back to the tight ends. And I think, like I said earlier, I think that the Arizona game in some ways actually damaged this team's identity, because going into the Arizona game, we kept wondering, when is it going to be the wide receivers? It's been the tight ends all year. When are the wide receivers going to step up? And then Chase Sowell, Brett Eskelson lead the receiving part of the box score. Sowell with 4 receptions at 146 yards. Eskelson goes 54 yards on 3 catches. Like, that was the game where it was like, okay, the wide receivers have shown up. It wasn't crazy. Honestly, one of the smallest box scores we've seen in the receiving category, with only 6 guys catching a pass. But it was a shift. It was a shift in the way that this Iowa State team seemed to throw the ball around, where the tight ends weren't as big of a part of the offense. Now, look, I'm gonna be honest with you. I spent my time diving into Rocco stats today just to really try to back up the thought process with some numbers. So I don't have the numbers of percentages of tight ends to wide receivers or whatever. If you want to get all of that, subscribe button down below is completely free. Helps me be able to do more of these kinds of things. But I can just tell you, based on the eye test, this team has moved away from the tight ends to an extent, at least a little bit. And I think that that's pretty fair. I want to see him get back to that. I want to see him get back to just like that was, I feel like, this team's really strong point going into this season. I want to see him utilize it again. Force teams to shut down the tight ends. It'll open up the wide receivers. I think it needs to be tight ends first, wide receivers second. The third thing I've got on here is penalties. We need to figure that out. Why are we getting so many penalties? We going into the first 3-4 games of the season, it was a major point where I was like, yeah, this team is extremely disciplined. That is a huge deal when you are not hurting yourself in games. If you're not shooting yourself in the foot, it's easier to run faster. Like, that's just a part of partially anatomy, but also football. Like that's what happens. And so we're not helping ourselves out in the penalty department. We're just not. Now, I get it. I heard a lot of comments on the rant from Saturday. We're talking about the penalty. I'm not saying that the penalty that was or wasn't called is like, that's not what I'm talking about here. I am talking about Iowa State needs to stop hurting themselves with, I'm just going to pick out a few penalties here. I'm not saying that any of these impacted recent games, but like defensive pass interferences and holding and false starts and things of that nature that are preventable, things that you can avoid doing. Don't do that. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about like defensive pass interference when you're on offense. Like, you have no real control over whether or not that's called, and whether like you don't get to pick defensive holding. Like, you don't get to pick how that impacts the game. Control your stuff. As a Patriots fan, you can see it right there, kind of, but it is a Patriot sign. Do your job. Just do your job. Do not fail at your job, and therefore have a penalty that can hurt the team. Do your job correctly, and you will go far. That is how I feel about this team. If they can figure out the penalty situation, I think that will help them quite a bit. Defensively, I know this was a hot take, and I know that there was at least a few comments saying that I was, in fact, calling for Haycock's job by saying that they need to get more pressure on the quarterback. I don't think that's what I was saying. I want to, I guess, clarify that. But I still stand by the fact that I think this team needs to at least get more pressure on the quarterback, because otherwise, why are we sending anyone? I'm sorry, but what is the goal? If the goal is not to even put pressure on the quarterback, because it sometimes doesn't look like they're even trying, what are we doing it for? Why don't we just drop all 11, send 3 more linebackers out there with a little bit more speed, essentially as 3 QB spies? Like, that's what look, I get it. It's not that simple, but I just want to see more pressure on the quarterback. The numbers I pulled up for the defense, honestly, nothing really stood out to me. I think the biggest thing was just based on eye test. This team does seem to struggle in 3rd and long. Can we figure that out? If we're getting teams in the 3rd and long, or 3rd down allowed, is ridiculous. It's not actually that crazy, but it's not good. I'm more thinking of the Iowa State offense struggling on 3rd down, which is a whole other topic of conversation. I don't love that there are this many points that if Iowa State just turned this around, that's what they would take for them to be a Big 12 champion, or to be, 10-2 or whatever it is. I don't love that, but I don't think they're that far away. I think every one of these points is fixable. I think every one of these points is something that Iowa State can do and can see success the rest of the season. Let me know what you guys think down below in the comments, or like I said, at Nick_Marv on Twitter. Thank you guys so much for making it to this point in the episode. This was a fun one to make, getting to go through the stats, doing the rankings. It's all thanks to every single one of you. You're the best. That being said, until next time, Cyclone fans, sayonara.